I have to do my patron Q&A. So let's go. We're just going to do them, and this will represent both months. This is for May and June. We're going to start with Mouse says, do you think there is still an undiscovered layer of horror we haven't tapped into as a species? This is a good start. I feel like with the prevalence of the internet, it seems nigh impossible that we circle back to getting spooked by scary monsters. But the true horror classics also feel in the same vein of what Lovecraft tapped into. Would love to hear your thoughts. Indeed, I am a horror aficionado. Let me tell you, horror's super simple. Right. So actually, let's go back. The reason I've always been interested in horror, said this many times, but if you knew, and it does happen to answer the question, there is no better genre if you ever want to learn about a society or a zeitgeist. If you're current, but I mean, you could even go back to like, decades to early horror. There's no better genre to find out about a society, and why? Because people's fears can represent lots of things. Like everybody, it's so overplayed. I'm bored of people fucking always feeling that compelled to point it out. But when Lovecraft is talking about, Shadow over Innsmouth and the Innsmouth people of bread with fish people, he's talking about what to him, a racist, is the horrors of miscegenation. Now, it's an irrational fear. It's a completely irrational fear. He thinks, he thought he saw people, you know, having babies with people of other races. He saw that as, air quotes, race mixing, and he thought there was going to be some negative come out of it. Obviously, what we know now is that it's actually a scientific fact that more often than not, you gain all the positive genetic aspects from both sides of the tree, and you cancel out some of the negative aspects that some people might have, like certain, what's the word for it? Where you have like predisposition is the word I'm looking to certain types of condition. So dual heritage babies don't necessarily suffer from defects that exist in almost exclusively suffered by certain people of certain ethnicities. That's something that seems to be true scientifically. It's certainly I've read some literature on it, very surface level. Might be wrong. There'll probably be a geneticist in the Twitch chat, but whatever. The bottom line is, it certainly isn't anything to be terrified about, and certainly isn't a net negative. And so ultimately, people, it seems crazy to me that people would have ever had a fear about it. But to someone like Lovecraft, and obviously to racists in general, the dilution of the races was a existential fear for them. And so, there we are. And so when you look at horror, sometimes it can be about the author, but more often than not, it can be about the society. The 80s, right? When the AIDS crisis was underway, you got lots of movies that were essentially metaphors for AIDS. Fatal Attraction looks like a slasher movie, but Fatal Attraction is about AIDS. And why do I say that? It's about a dude that has a one night stand, and the one night stand follows him home. And in the movie, it's a woman that like kills his pet and harasses the family and. But ultimately, it's about, if you have a one night stand, sometimes something horrible can follow you for the rest of your life as a result of that. Now, that allegory doesn't quite hold up, because in the end, he shoots her in the head, and you can't shoot AIDS in the head. Although now it's just AIDS isn't even a thing, but between the medications we've got and PrEP, people just live forever and can't even spread it. Well, don't have a very, 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 very minuscule chance of spreading it. But you get the point. The point is that people were afraid of AIDS, and I was very young, but I grew up in the time when everyone was talking about AIDS, and it was on the news, and you had the fucking John Hurt commercial, AIDS, don't die of ignorance, with the giant 2001-esque monolith tombstone. And there was even credible news publications saying AIDS will kill. It was something like, it might have been Time magazine. I think they ran something that said AIDS will kill 50% of the planet by the year 2000. It was something insane. It was something insane, and it's like, what? But this is where people were at with it, and so there's a lot of movie body horrors about AIDS, and stuff like that. So horror's like a really good go-to genre if you ever want to know, like, what was going on at that moment in time, historically speaking, societally speaking. And so the reality is, it's cliche to point it out, you can never fail to tap into what horror is. Because back in the day, when we hadn't explored all of the world, what was a horror story? And they went there, and there was this thing that they'd never seen the likes of before, and they were, and we must never go back there because there be dragons. That was the old horror stories because we hadn't seen the globe. There was no way to get up in the sky and look down and survey land. Those motherfuckers that got on boats back in the day are some of the bravest motherfuckers that ever lived. They got in boats and they sailed in a straight line and said, "Well, let's hope we find land." Even as late as the British Empire, the motherfuckers that went, if you've ever seen that series, The Terror, that's like a really fun adaptation of it, and in and of itself, a good horror series and good television, and Jared Harris is amazing in it. They went on those boats knowing that there was a chance you would get locked in the ice and be there for years, stuck in a boat, waiting for a thaw. They knew that was a risk of the job. And they went and they had these things called icebreakers, and they just went out there. It's mental, but you can imagine what their existential horrors were about. You can imagine what they were writing about. So ultimately, horror will always succeed. Horror's having a renaissance period right now. There's a ton of horror coming out in the cinema. I went to see 28 Years Later. I went to the cinema recently, right? Which, as you can imagine, I don't like going to the cinema. I don't, the cinema experience. I usually wait for things just to come on home premiere or whatever it's called. You're usually only waiting 6 weeks these days. So it's not even a long wait. You just don't look at spoilers if you care. I don't think you can really spoil a movie for me because I like to make my own interpretation. Even if it's got a twist in it, maybe that would fuck it up, but I don't really care. Whatever. So, but I also know how to avoid spoilers because I'm not a fucking child. And so I went because I wasn't waiting for this. I adore 28 Days Later, and 28 Weeks Later has an opening scene that might be better than anything in 28 Days Later before it kind of goes off the rails and it's really boring and then picks up a little bit at the end. For me, it goes like this. Like 28 Days Later is a 5 out of 5 movie. 28 Weeks Later is a 2 and a bit out of 5 movie. And 28 Years Later, probably more than any of the movies, does a really good job of world building, and I might give it a 4 out of 5. I won't ruin it. I won't be childish, but the way it ended, you know what? I was dialed in. I wanted to see the sequel, but that's not what we're talking about. More than that, I now was like, "Oh, fuck." The trailers were all horror movies, almost exclusively. And there were ones I hadn't even heard of. There's one called Together. That looks fucking weird and freaky. I haven't even seen Bring Her Back yet. There was a trailer for that. That looks sick. I just haven't had time. I am going to watch it. It looks fucking great. Then there was, what was the other one? Weapons, it's called, which looks to be like some weird thing where a class of kids just become like ultra violent. And I was like, wow, like this is all A24, most of it, but this is all like A24 avant-garde horror that taps into existential fears of our generation. Together, it appears to be about a couple living in close proximity, and it stifling the relationship. We can all sort of sympathize with that, I'm sure, if you've ever been in a long-term relationship. That looks good. Weapons, classic, children, what are they getting into in an era where people are on the internet getting radicalized? Looks good. Looks like that's an allegory that could be very fucking strong indeed. Bring Her Back. It looks like to be kind of an exorcism kind of thing, or not an exorcism, rather a demonic possession slash resurrection movie. Looks also like it's going to be an incredibly powerful allegory about the death of a child, and again, just something existentially we have to be worried about all times in history. It's like one of those things. I can't even imagine what it would be like. You have a kid, the kid dies. Like, fuck me, how does anyone come back from that? Not even a parent. And I don't know if I can't even fathom how anybody could go on. Like, I really can't get it. And it's incredible that people do somehow manage not only to come back from that, but also to have other kids and risk it all again. Oh, mad. So listen, All of which is to say, the reality is, I think horror will always be around and it will always be accurate to the times in which we exist. And yeah, you don't get scared about big spooky monsters. You get scared about what the big spooky monster represents and what it's saying about the society and the times in which you live. First off, as esports has gone on, there seems to be a trend where what seems like a final boss has appeared only to be superseded in a few years by an entity that makes them seem quaint by comparison. It was Alex Garfield, Nicola Nyholm, and now the Saudi Arabian state. There were a few more in between. Is there anything in the future that could feasibly out evil the Saudis, or have we finally encountered the ultimate bad guy? Look, never say never. For me, I think probably what would ultimately out evil the Saudis would have to. I mean, we've got to see kind of where it leads to, what might happen, and I think basically I still believe there's a real chance of somebody getting hurt in all of this. And how that manifests, I don't want to think about, but probably. I also do feel, and this is like just something I feel, but I do also feel with each passing year, we do just get closer and closer to some sort of terrorist incident as well. Just speaking candidly. I don't think we do a lot to protect ourselves. We get more and more high profile. There's all politics bleeding into the events, and people are using esports now explicitly for political purposes like sports washing. Yeah. Nobody thought anyone would commit a terrorist atrocity at the Olympics, given the spirit of what the Olympics is about, but it happened. So I don't know. I don't want to say. Like, on a serious note, it just makes me profoundly sad to see what esports has become. And ultimately, I always thought we'd seen the worst. I always thought this thing is as bad as it can get, and then it never was. And now we're here, and yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe there's like a real fun period and a return to, dare I use the word normalcy instead of normality, once the Saudis pull the plug and don't want to fund this bullshit anymore. But we'll have to see. Unfortunately, we'll have to see. I don't hold out a lot of faith that esports is going to course correct, but it is pretty hard to beat a tyrannical state that oppresses its own people, kills political dissidents, arrests women's rights activists, persecutes gay people, and then anyone that wants to point that out, it stuffs so much money into their money that they feel compelled to be silent. They might be the final boss. I mean, they're not even the worst regime on planet Earth. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see who's next. Zumba, do you have an actor or actress that would make you have the same level of hatred Monty has towards Zoe Deschanel? You know who it is. It's Jack Black. It's always been Jack Black. It will always be Jack Black. Jack Black, with the exception of High Fidelity, stinks up every movie he's in. He's talentless. He's unfunny. And it's crazy. The one thing America does better than any other country in the world, it's the fat, fucking funny guy. The mold was wrong on this one. It was warped on this one. Jack Black, it should just be called Hack Hack. He's fucking trash. Also, you can see he just exudes arrogance in that same way that someone like James Corden does. Also, another terminally unfunny fat guy. What do I mean by that? Like, every time I watch, like, somebody like Jack Black, 'cause I'm also drawn to it like the moth to the flame. He's always complaining about stuff. The narrative, the story is always like, oh, when we were working on Tropic Thunder, man, I kept getting thrown off that cow or whatever, and it was like, it really nearly hurt me. You're a fucking actor, man. The fuck up. What's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with you? You're filming a film. Like, you're getting paid millions. Like, yeah. Oh, did baby Jack Black get bruises on his ass? Where I was really out with him, I've told the story about the documentary where he went and saw the kid living in abject poverty in some African country, literally eating out of a trash pile. But this kid was super intelligent and had really good math skills, really good literacy skills. And at the end of his time with him, he asked if he could come back with him. And Jack Black said, "Oh, no, I can't. Oh, bloody hell." And it was like, clearly he was trying to make excuses to this kid. And it's like, you could totally, like, help this kid out, by the way. Like, I'm not saying you have to adopt him, but you could, like, give him some money, like, help, like, use your Hollywood connections to, like, talk to a school, maybe get him a exchange program or something. I I think I think if I went to do a documentary and I met a child that was exceptionally talented and bright, and at the end, they tearfully asked if I could help get them out of the country they were in, I'd probably feel compelled to do that on some level. I reckon Jack Black just went on fucking Conan O'Brien and pretended to play that toy saxophone. He's a cunt. I can't stand him. The final straw, bizarrely, was when he ruined King Kong. He ruined the King Kong remake. King Kong's one of my favorite movies. Love it as a kid. Incredible memories of being introduced to it by my grandparents. And he destroyed that film. I don't know why Peter Jackson didn't recast him in the middle of the shoot, but here we are. And now, and the Tenacious D. Tenacious D is fake rock for fucking Redditors. All of those cunts you went to university with that were like, repeating Monty Python sketches over and over again as if no one's seen them. It's humor for that type of person. It's humor for people who think Terry Pratchett is high art. It's trash. I detest Tenacious D. I hated how we had a fucking jukebox in the fucking, or whatever you call them these days. I don't even know. Jukebox for me. We had one in the fucking student union bar, and people would play Tenacious D tribute all the time. And I used to look around to see which wanker had put it on. And you would always be able to spot them because they would be singing along to it and even doing air guitar. So, Tenacious D, Jack Black, or everything Jack Black has touched or created has poisoned mankind irredeemably, irreparably, for all time. He has no redeeming features. In a positive society, there would be no Jack Blacks. We just wouldn't produce them. It would be impossible. There wouldn't be a mechanism for a Jack Black to exist. And yet, here we are. So, I don't understand it. Never understood it, but I detest him. I think I actually detest Jack Black way more than Monty detests Zoe Deschanel. Atarian, is there a band artist whose music you think is overrated, but you can still enjoy it anyway? That's a very interesting question. It's overrated, but I like it anyway. Overrated. This is controversial, but I've got the answer. Kendrick Lamar. There you go. Kendrick Lamar. Overrated as fuck. Like, good. Very good. But overrated. Still overrated somehow. Still overrated despite being very good. But I listen to it because it's very good. But it's also overrated as fuck. Like, I listened to his last one. He's phoning it in, guys. He's laughing at you. I also knew I was starting to go off him when he did that live show and he played They Not Like Us 3 times, which They Not Like Us, by the way, wasn't even the best songs in the fucking diss war with Drake. They Not Like Us is a throwaway song that you write for fun and then you never talk about it again. So, yeah, it's Kendrick. It is. It's overrated. His fans are insufferable. They're among the worst hip hop heads. They're all like Anthony Fantanos. So, yeah, I'm like, I listen to it. It's good. It's definitely overrated. The fan base is insufferable. He isn't the savior of hip hop that people say, but whatever. Here we go. £2, I think. We've all heard that many horror stories from the CGS days, but are there any positives that came for it? Oh, yeah, mate. Lifelong relationships. I mean, if you're talking on a personal level, lifelong relationships, people that I went on to have, huge sections of my life sharing with them before whatever changed to make them not be in my life anymore. In a roundabout way, it kept me in esports. I wouldn't have been here. You would never have known who Richard Lewis was. I'd have been working in an office Why? It was the first time I ever felt validated that I could earn money for writing about this, actual money. Because the funny part was CGS paid me more than the next esports gig I had over CGS by approximately 3 times. It was enough to live on. It weren't great, but you could live on it. The money I got in my the next paying gig was dog shit. And I got to meet people like Chris Kamara. What a wonderful person he was. I've told the story before as well about how, because he's from Middlesbrough and I was living in Middlesbrough. We were staying in the same hotel, and I was obviously just there alone working, and he was there alone doing the FIFA. And just via the simple fact that we had a connection, he said, "Come and have a beer with me." So I got to have a beer with Chris Kamara. I interviewed him as well. It wasn't just we just had a beer. That's like a treasured memory because I saw a really earnest, kind, decent person in the world of sports. There was absolutely nothing fake about him. Just a very warm human being that wanted to just shoot the shit about what it's like to live in Middlesbrough. Overall, if you're talking about esports, what good came of the CGS? I think it's hard to say we learned a lesson. No one learns lessons in esports. It shook out a lot of the pretenders. You have to understand that where CGS ended was crazy because we were basically at a point where, like, I think Lincoln Park were going to invest and maybe have a franchise and stuff like this. It was getting wild. And then it just crashed overnight. The money was gone and everyone got fired via email. And so a lot of people said, well, this proves esports can't work. We're out. And then it was on people like Jason Lake and all the people that never got involved in CGS to begin with, like Sam Matthews. It was on them to rebuild, and we did. We rebuilt. The esports that we had coming out of CGS were low key, small. 1.6 was essentially being kept alive, by virtue of the fact they didn't get sucked into it, but also, 2009, 2010, that's a super sick, exciting time for 1.6. Some of my favorite memories, the Ryzen RV in 2010, 2009 Fnatic, the MTW the MTW team that emerged. That was a really cool time, and 1.6 was unsullied by it. Yeah, some of the players and the personalities went back to that. So we had I want to say that it was the last sort of great age of 1.6. Then we went into 2009 League of Legends launches in beta, right? We had the split. We started getting streaming platforms. We had the rise of YouTube and video game / esports content on YouTube. We had new games being released. We had insane games coming out, like StarCraft 2 and fucking just like award-winning games. And so it was like once we got rid of the shit and remember, we had a global recession as well. The global recession just kicked everyone's ass. That was the subprime mortgage crisis when CGS went under. And so, yeah, whatever. We rebuilt and we again, to quote Biden, we built back better. We built back better. And so, esports was cool for a while, if you can believe it. Probably that period of time for me, like 2009 through to 2014, that was sick. Loved all of that. Glad I got those years. Holding on to that. That's a treasured memory. So that's good. So yeah, there you go. Jester, which member of talent would you like to see come back and work at a CS event again, even if it was only just for one event? Got to be careful here because I can't remember who's been cancelled and who hasn't, who's a wrong and who isn't. So got to be careful. Got to be careful. I mean, look, it's never going to be a bad answer to say Sadikist. I know. He's never going to change either. But I'd love to hear him again. Just selfishly. But maybe we can go more old school. Fuzz TV saying Pansy. Jester didn't say Counter-Strike event. You do realize Pansy is still... Oh, he did say CS event. Sorry, my bad. All right, fair enough. I thought you were just discounting all of Pansy's incredible Valorant career. That's fair enough. Pansy will come back. There's no way. I don't even need to wish for it. Like Lauren will 100. Lauren will... You got lucky there, Fuzz TV. I was about to light you up, and then I went back and read the question. But Lauren will come back, and I don't need to wish for it. She'll 100% do it. It's fine. She plays the game all the time. She keeps up with the scene. She came and did the No Majors Club every day while the major was on before she went to Toronto, and she'll be back again. You know, like she's just coming back. So you don't need to wish for it. Tosspot is a huge shout. Stewart is good people. I don't know what he's doing these days. Tosspot was one of the first real big energy casters. In a time when everyone was trying to really be sports, Tosspot got that we didn't have to be. And his style was great. He had the iconic call. All great casters get one. This is how you know if they're great. Puckett working a CS event? Yeah, but I mean, again, it's weird for me to say, oh, this person that's having these super successful careers, you know, that are being successful in these other games, I want them just selfishly to come up for one CS event. I don't think of those people as out because I follow all esports. I'll give you another one. Smix. I do miss Sue. I think she was one of the best interviewers we ever had. I love that she was never shy about showing emotions. And I think kind of prior to James Banks, she was one of the interviewers that clearly did vibe with the players as well and was very relatable, but also very empathetic. She was great. We had so many iconic moments because of Smix across multiple games, but certainly in CS. I mean, it was the perfect cherry on an unbelievably decadent cake, wasn't it? When Skadoodle was crying and she managed somehow, either via osmosis or anything, to get him to say the line, you know, I'm not crying, you're crying. She was just great. Although I wouldn't wish a Magic's interview on her. So pick any of those. I think they're all good shouts. I love Miles Ross. He's also a friend of the stream. I was going to do a Richard Lewis show with him, I think 3 or 4 times. I had a mental break. One time he got sick, then another time we blanked on an event, then I had a total mental breakdown in public one time that probably put him off wanting to come on the show for a bit. So I don't know. But I love Miles. I love his work. He's fantastic. Love to get him on the show and pick his brains. I'm sure we will at some point. Next. Please, God, Rich. I've been waiting for 2 years. Please, Rich. I just want you to show some sick-ass wrestling. Do you hate me? No, I'm just not into wrestling anymore. And anyone that tries to show it to me, you would need to have a This is basically the level I'm on. My oldest friend he's a huge wrestling fan. He's always telling me about wrestling. When he comes round of a night and we have a few beers, he says, can we put the wrestling on? And I acquiesce and allow it, but I hate every second of it. I hate every second of it. I haven't felt anything about wrestling since the Attitude Era. And by the way, he says things. Yeah, it's like Attitude Era and ECW, that's and you know WCW Nitro in its heyday. They're my era of wrestling. That's what I think was the peak of wrestling. My friend says things like the Attitude Era is actually overrated and bad because they didn't wrestle. It was just a soap opera. Oh yeah. So anyone that tries to show me wrestling better be him, or you just don't get to show it to me, unfortunately. That's how that works. Zumba Patreon request. Could you make a video about your opinions on the Stop Killing Games initiative and the topic of game preservation? Absolutely. Unfortunately, it does mean I'll probably have to talk about pirate software, something I like to avoid because I'm not a slop tuber. And it's just like shooting fish in a barrel. The guy is one walking self-own and was long before he roached on that WoW thing. But whatever. I don't know what's more insufferable, him or everyone talking about him endlessly. But unfortunately, he is entwined with the history of that movement, so it will have to happen. But okay. Next one. I believe on the NMC, you said The Great Gatsby was overrated. It is. What classics do you believe are overrated? If I remember correctly, can you expand on why you dislike Gatsby? I dislike Gatsby because it is not a well-written book and it isn't even saying anything profound. There it is. I read The Great Gatsby exactly once. I might be misremembering some details. For me, it's like, put it this way, around about the same time I read The Great Gatsby, I read the mind-blowing book, The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. Once you've read that book, you really can't ever settle into the notion of The Great Gatsby being a piece of great literature. Now, I know Hunter S. Thompson loved it, and I spent years aping Hunter S. Thompson and wanting to be him, and certainly have arrived at the washed self-parody stage earlier than I would have liked. But he believed The Great Gatsby was one of the best books ever written, if not the best book, and was so obsessed with it, he used to type it out over and over and over again on a typewriter because he believed the rhythmic sound of him typing it out was somehow going to align his writing brain with what great literature sounds like, and therefore he would know it from the sound of the keys when it was his own words. That's mental for anyone to feel that way about that book. Catcher in the Rye is a better book. It's not a great book. Catcher in the Rye kind of stinks too. Steinbeck. I'm not even a fan of Steinbeck. Steinbeck's books are better. It's just not a good book. And as I said, say something. The book doesn't have to be complicated, but just say something. If you've never read The Sound and the Fury, Sound and the Fury is about a family that are all going through different things. Guy wants to commit suicide. But it starts, if I remember rightly, it might even be like the first 60 pages of the novel, which William Faulkner wrote in a library, I believe. No. Yeah, he wrote it while he was on the night shift in a factory. And he wrote it in a relatively short space of time. And the first 60 pages, I think, it's from what they used to call then, in our insensitive times, an imbecile. Someone who is cognitively impaired, educationally subnormal, whatever you want to say. And it makes no sense. It's gibberish. It's overlapping sentences. It's a recurring word that doesn't make sense. And without spoiling it, because I would love more people to read this book and talk about it, by the end of the book, you actually realize what he was talking about. And if you go back and read those first 60, 70 pages, it all makes sense. That is great writing. The Great Gatsby has none of that. The Great Gatsby is like, it's a book for like children. It's so crap. I just can't express that out of all of the history of human literature, and we've only got a limited time on Earth and we can only read the best. Why anybody would say The Great Gatsby is a must-read book is beyond me. But I'll also say, here you go, just to keep it equal opportunities. It's not just The Great Gatsby I hate. Tolstoy's War and Peace. What a crock of shit. What a waste of time. And actually a book, like an overly long movie, and that doesn't respect your time. Absolute trash. Absolute trash. Easily one of the most overrated books of all time, where it's like, oh, but it's long, but it's super rewarding. Garbage. Tolstoy, overrated. Not even top 5 Russian authors. Trash. Nowhere close to that. Trash. Absolute trash. And by the way, someone up there did sub, it's Avi Wash, of course, and said Moby Dick. No, it's just the way I'm sat. But the Moby Dick is so ahead of its time. It's actually crazy. It might even be a cliche book at this moment in time. But remember, Moby Dick opens with a guy about to step into traffic. That is so edgy and insane for that time period that it's written. It's a guy who's about to step in front of like one of them shit slow moving cars to fucking ice himself. So yeah, definitely War and Peace. No thanks. But Great Gatsby, shit. I hate that book. I hate that book with a passion. The fact that I'm even praising Salinger's Catcher in the Rye over it is fucking crazy. It's garbage. I don't know why anyone would want to read it, frankly. Next, why is Brian Stelter the king of the potato people? Well, I call him that because, first of all, it's actually an interesting, funny little reference to Red Dwarf, which no one ever picks up on, because Red Dwarf is one of those insanely good comedies that's kind of fading into obscurity over time. It's even forgotten by British audiences. Didn't help that they moved to Dave when they were all old and fat and did a bunch of really shit, unfunny series. And even worse than that, a far bigger crime, they did that one series that was aimed at Americans. And we all know Americans will never understand British comedy from now until the end of time. But the episode in Red Dwarf where I think they answer a fucking distress call at many such cases in Red Dwarf, and they discover that a hologrammatic doctor put herself into cryogenic stasis because she was dying of a hollow virus, right? And if you don't know, in the law in the world, basically you can bring back people as conscious beings, that exist in a purely light form, an emitted light form. So they have all of their memories, all of their personality archetypes, all of their same desires and goals, but they can't physically touch anything because they're made of light. They look like they're there in front of you because it's a hologram and it's projected 3D, but they're made of light. Now, obviously, holograms are synthetic beings. So kind of like, we're having this big debate about AI. More on that in a second. And so ultimately they're light, so they shouldn't be able to get a virus. They can still, but this doctor has somehow isolated a holovirus, and they all think they're going to be sick. They all go to quarantine. They all isolate themselves, and unbeknownst known to them, the hologram, a character called Rimmer, that is by the way, brought back from the dead because he doesn't get on with the protagonist Lister. They hate each other, but it is that fractious relationship that will keep Lister sane as the last human being left in the universe while they try and get back to Earth. So they have this horrible relationship, and it turns out that he's been infected with the virus. And he attempts to kill them. It drives him mad. He tries to kill everybody on the ship. And the first thing it does is it drives you insane. And they come back and they go, right, we're out of quarantine. How are you doing? And he's wearing a dress, which is a reference to Psycho, but obviously, again, probably wouldn't pass muster in this day and age because you can't mock that. That's off the table. And he's got a penguin puppet called Mr. Flibbles. And he is saying that he's going to have to punish them by giving them 2 hours WOO, which stands for without oxygen. And so he does this speech where he says that he will let them free if Lister, the protagonist, will get on a magic carpet and fly with him to go visit the king of the potato people.
You want to fly on a magic carpet to see the king of the potato people and plead with him for your freedom. And you're telling me you're completely sane? I think that warrants 2 hours of WOO.
And so, because Brian Stelter's face looks like a potato, he is incredibly, I keep telling people this and they don't believe it. Brian Stelter is like 5 years younger than me, maybe even more, maybe 6. Brian Stelter is in his 30s. I know you can't believe it. I know you're shocked. But he looks like a potato with eyes. So Brian Stelter is he's an anti-journalist. I detest him. Detest everything he stands for. And Brian Stelter, it looks like a potato. So the fact that I already had the phrase king of the potato people in my brain, and Brian Stelter looks like a potato, and I think he's garbage, and actual human garbage, because he actively puts poison into the world in the form of deception, and he has helped divide America to the sad state it's in right now, where we're reading about domestic terrorist attacks and people beating each other up over fucking political differences. Yeah, he's the king of the potato people, and always will be. Carve. Fucking hell, man. What's the most crooked thing you've seen this week? The Trump administration's handling of the Epstein list debacle, or Conor McGregor's one-eyed weightlifter? Listen, it's Trump. It's Trump. Conor's dick weren't even that bent, really, if we're just being honest about it. Most men's penises have a curve in them. It's something we don't like to talk about because Americans have somehow created the idea that all penises are circumcised and straight and everything in the same way they walk around with those giant chomping veneers in their head. It's not an accurate reflection of reality and what people look like. But anyway, it's undeniably Trump with the Epstein list. And in fact, I've been scripting out a couple of shows I want to talk about. I haven't done a stream in a while where I do one of my happenings streams. If you remember, whenever there's a happening that everyone's talking about, what I would do is I go through and I pull all the best bits of the internet so you don't have to look about it, and I construct a timeline, and then I go through it and we laugh and we cry and it's funny and it's sad and it's frustrating, but it's all accurate and it's all well researched. And so I have done that for the Epstein files. In fact, I can even tell you, I'm going to look at it now. I'm going to just show you that ultimately I have a complete timeline running, just looking at the notes, running from June 4th, 2021, when J.D. Vance, now vice president, said, Remember when we learned that our wealthiest and most powerful people were connected to a guy who ran a literal child sex trafficking ring, and then that guy died mysteriously in a jail, and now we just don't talk about it? So, people, I couldn't tell if this guy on Substack was like maybe implying I wouldn't talk about it because I'm a Trump supporter or something. But he said, I can't wait for the next episode of Belly of the Beast where Richard will talk about the Epstein files. I'm gonna do you one better, mate. That entire episode that I've got scripted for the next Belly of the Beast, might be tomorrow or the day after. I'm gonna talk about all the way Trump has completely fucking lied to his base, and how all the influencers like fucking tiny Charlie Kirk with his tiny fucking face. He's like saying now, I'm a trust the government. What? On the Epstein files. That's what we're doing. But the point of the point of the episode is this. What have I always told you? They thought Trump was anti-establishment. Trump is not anti-establishment. He worked for a mainstream media network on one of the most successful TV shows that network produced. He is a billionaire with ties to businesses, foreign and domestic. He is a fucking property mogul in one of the most expensive cities to live in the world, and made his fortune doing that. And because Barack Obama said he would never be president, used his wealth to gain the easiest system in the world to gain with money, and that is the American political system, and became president, not once, but twice. And so he's about as establishment as you can get. And he has met Epstein, lest we forget. Now, I do genuinely believe he certainly doesn't have as close ties as, say, someone like Bill Clinton. Pretty sure Bill Clinton's been on that jet a bunch, enjoyed some foot massages. However, I'm just going to say straight up that Trump now doing a 180, it's on brand for who he is. Do you get that? Like, how many times is he going to fuck you guys over before you realize he's just another politician? Not an especially dangerous one. Certainly not a Russian asset. All nonsense. The lies that have been told about this guy stagger me. But is he a politician? Yes. Is he a liar? Yes. Indisputably. Not the biggest liar of all time, but he's a politician. He's lying to you. Of course he's lying to you. Like, look, here's what he did. He said he would stop the war in Ukraine, but certainly he would stop sending arms to Ukraine, right? No more arms, he said. He's just come out and said, I remember about it, there was a report in the Financial Times, I believe it was, or was it the Wall Street Journal? Or was it FT? Anyway, Wall Street Journal. And he came out and he said that he'd been talking to Zelensky and asking if Zelensky could strike Moscow, because that's what a Putin puppet would do, of course. And he just came out and he did a news conference, and they asked, what type of weapons are you sending to them? How big is the package? He said, oh, it's very, very comprehensive. The most weapons, everything, full air support, ground support. You voted for him to stop that. Now, whether you're right or wrong or whatever, his base, the MAGA base, didn't want any more money to Ukraine. He's giving money to Ukraine. You didn't want any more weapons to Ukraine. He's giving weapons to Ukraine. You wanted the war in Ukraine to end. Trump said he would end it within 24 hours of being in the White House. Putin won't even pick up the phone to him right now. So you got wrecked on that one. All right, okay, but what about the deportations, Richard? Well, he's been doing them, and good, right? It's weird to me that the good guys in this argument believe it's okay for an illegal underclass to exist in American society where they are exploited for cheap labor to clean, cook, pick fruit, and mind children. Why you would want that to be part of your society, nay, why you would argue that that is essential and not gross and not exploitative, I don't know. Certainly illegal immigration is just wrong across the board, and while I myself, had I been in that situation, might travel illegally to a country for a better life, although I was poor, I never did it, so who knows? There's levels to the game of poverty, I suppose. I just think you enter into a country the correct way. And if you get denied, boo-hoo. Sucks to be you. That's life. Can't all be a bed of roses for everybody. You weren't promised paradise when you were plucked out of non-existence. And so he has now turned around and said, oh, the ice raids, we're not going to do it on the farms. And he even said, and I'd like to not do it for some other industries, but they get mad at me. They get mad at me. That's what he said. So he's not even deporting all the illegals, right? But that's what you voted for him for, right? The Epstein file were huge for his base. Trump's going to get in. We're finally going to see the truth. The demon rats are going to be exposed. Pam Bondi promised them shortly after her appointment. They even did that cringeworthy photo op where they gave right-wing influencers like DC Drano and all of those types who they invited to the White House, they gave them that pile of already publicly available fucking documents, said it was the Epstein file. We'd already read them. They all took photos and posted. And now those same people have turned around and said, oh, listen, maybe he killed himself after all. Maybe there's nothing to know. Maybe he wasn't running a Mossad blackmail operation like everyone said, including us for all those years. So I'm missing one. All right, well, fuck it. You can listen to the episode. The bottom line is, on the matter of the Epstein files, you've absolutely been bamboozled, hoodwinked. Oh, yeah, I mean, I could do No New Wars. It wasn't that. No New Wars, P.S. Let's annex the following countries. Let's fund, this, that, and the other. I mean, but on the Epstein files, you've been made to look like idiots. You genuinely thought you were just going to go there and drop all the files. You do realize, by the way, that as soon as the fucking spotlights are turned off, it does, and it's got really hostile of late in the Trump years. I don't dispute that. But did you see him sat laughing and joking with fucking Chuck Schumer? When the lights are off, they're all talking to each other. They're all in bed with each other. They're all doing business with each other, sharing insider info about stock and trade and businesses and investment, colluding and fucking canoodling, coming up with ideas to fucking keep you poor, steal out of your pocket and keep you in there, all doing it. Red tie, blue tie, doesn't fucking matter. Never did, never will. If you vote, you're a sucker. And I don't want to hear otherwise, because I've lived a life and I have seen it. I have been politically invested, politically positive. It doesn't work. The system is bent, and it is bent in a way against you explicitly to the point where it can never be changed. Never. Never, ever, never, not in your lifetime. We will have to ascend to the point of enlightened beings, and then at that point, none of it matters. And now the midterms are coming in 26, and you're all going to get told it's the referendum on Trump. It's your chance to get back at him. By the way, in 26, because the economy's going okay, and because border fucking encounters are down massively, and because the big, beautiful bill passed, and people are going to start feeling the benefits of not having their tips taxed, you think the Epstein files is going to swing it back to the Democrats in 26 when you dickheads are traveling abroad to have Mai Tais with MS-13 fucking gang members, calling them Maryland man. You've got Alex Padilla, star of today's episode, doing fake arrests. You've just got somebody in the New York mayoral race that literally, in his rap career, literally shouted out a group that was convicted in an American court for having funded hundreds of acts of terrorism against Jews. Oh, yeah, you're winning. You'll clean up in the midterms. Blue wave, you idiots. Try engaging with the American people fucking seriously if you think the Epstein files is a big issue. I bet if I went to, I don't know, Nebraska or fucking, wherever, and asked someone struggling financially, just a salt of the earth American person, what do you think about the Epstein files? They wouldn't have a fucking opinion. You got to be terminally on fucking line for that to really matter. Because what does the Epstein files tell us? What? You mean to tell me the elite live a secret life where they indulge in vile acts away from us, the general public, and they believe they're entitled to do it, and they use their wealth and their connections to hide that they do it, while simultaneously fucking over other powerful people to climb the hierarchical ladder they operate on? No, you don't say. You don't say. It's horrifying. It's horrifying to dwell on. It's children being systemically abused for the whims of the wealthy and elite. and it's all gonna go away, and it wouldn't have mattered if Kamala was in, and it doesn't matter if Trump's in. It doesn't matter who you elected. Could have elected Bernie. That would never come out. You're never getting to see that secret world. You're a pleb. They think you're a pleb. They treat you like a pleb, and you behave like a pleb when you get behind people like Trump and go, he will reveal all of the secret truths of the universe to us. No, you fucking idiots. You rubes. You fucking rubes. So definitely more crooked than Connor's dick. Mouse, in the middle of reading Easy Riders Raging Bulls, sick book, I got curious and read some of the reviews that claim that the book is taking a lot of liberties with the portrayal of those people, of the people in those stories. I don't feel inclined to just take it at face value, but I'm curious how you pass with this, even if it's such a great read. I got it in the back of my mind that I don't want to be taken for a ride at the expense of other people's perception, but it's undeniably entertaining. How do you deal with that lack of certainty? I'm going to just tell you this. One of the things that you have to accept when somebody writes a journalistic book that is ultimately a collection of your own observations, but also hundreds and hundreds of interviews and pulling disparate source material and bashing it together into a melange that tells a coherent story that is ultimately a history of the rise and fall of the auteur movement in Hollywood. That's what Easy Riders Raging Bulls is. There's going to be liberties. You have to take liberties with something like that. How could you possibly get to the truth? How could you possibly have a 100% nailed on, non-anecdotal story about the creation of something like Heaven's Gate, where that was the classic example of, what is it? Success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan, right? Nobody took the blame on any of that, and everybody was quick to point the finger at this, that, and the other. All you can do is interview 50 people, and if 26 tell you the one thing, you gotta write that up. It's 26 sources. Yeah, but 24 dispute it. So whenever I read books like that, and there's loads of books like that, the other great one is Football Against the Enemy by Simon Cooper. Wonderful anecdotal travelogue about how football and politics intertwines. Behind me, that purple spine you see here, that's Showtime, the one they based the Rise of the LA Lakers for that TV show on. It's the same. That archetype of book is going to have anecdotes in it. And some of those anecdotes are going to be lies or misremembrance, particularly the more the more time that has transpired between the happening and everything that's going on. And ultimately, you're just going to have to buckle up and enjoy the ride. I've got no reason to doubt anything that's in there, particularly. By the way, that orange and black spine is Easy Riders Raging Bulls, I think, is it? But anyway, yeah, I've got no reason to doubt anything that's in that book. Hollywood is crazy, and it's only got crazier with time. If you can believe the excesses of the auteur movement was actually more austere than the insanity of the over-controlling studio system. That's all focus group now. So I definitely just accept it. I accept it, buckle up for the ride. If something sounds too crazy to be true, yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But it's Peter Susskind, right, that did Easy Rider Raging Bulls. He's a guy you should respect. He's wrote good books. He's a very experienced guy, and that's his masterpiece. Last one, Peppermint. In which country would you like to see a major that hasn't had a CS major yet, counting CSGO and CS2? Right. Let's be real about it. Right. Okay. I'm immediately going to discount doing places that are logistically absurd. And so that's going to discount, come on. We're not having a Mumbai major, is all I'm saying. Not for now. Just shelving that. No disrespect. I get to say that, Indian family, but we're not. Not yet. I think Canada is a very good shout, but I think people will be unpleasantly surprised at the complexities of you're gonna have similar problems with visas, I think, than you would at an an American event. Um, but I like Canada. Canada's made a stellar contribution to Counter-Strike that people forget because it all just gets lumped in with that term North America. Now more than ever, with a sitting American president talking about Canada, one of its oldest allies, in a really derisory fashion, now more than ever, it's good to recognize Canada as an independent nation and not lump it in with America. And I love that country and I have many friends from there. So works for me. If, though, I was being a little bit chaotic, and this is going to sound really bad after I said we can't do it in Mumbai, but I've got my own selfish reasons. Bangkok. There's no reason to have a major there. There's just no reason to have a CS major there at all, right? No reason to go to Thailand for Counter-Strike. Makes sense for Dota, but you know, that's the fucking event where it's just a lottery if people are going to turn up to work. Like, it's just a lottery. Just, am I coming in today? Am I going to do the show? Richard Lewis isn't here today, so we're going to have to do this segment without a host. It's possible. So I would love that, just personally. It's been a long time since I've been back to Thailand, but increasingly, I think, it's time to have a revisit, isn't it? And that's it, really. I mean, come on, it sort of does have. Is there a country that has produced like a great team, a national team, so 5 of the same nation, that hasn't had a major? Like Denmark's had one, Brazil's had one, America's had more than one, Sweden's had one, Poland's had one, Ukraine can't happen, so, Jace is saying Finland. Yep. Finland is the one country where I think if you had a major there, it could conceivably bankrupt Valve. Norway would probably actually be worse. So, yeah. Germany's had one, for fuck's sake. So, it's Canada. I know everyone's going to say Australia, but let's be real. I've said it a million times. Listen, you might like that shit in the crowd. That's fine. Never me. I don't even think we should have CS tournaments in Australia. Controversially. I don't care how much beer you can drink out of shoes. Why should anyone fly 24 hours just to fucking watch you dickheads do that? Play in blazing heat and then have to fly back to the next event and be permanently fucking jet lagged while your brain tries to compensate. I like Australians. Don't like Australian esports fans, but love Australian people. Love Australian history. British. We're entwined, whether we like it or not. Don't like the rise of the shoey. That's dumb. And listen, I'm a rugby player. I've drank worse than beer out of a shoe. Fucking God knows. But grow up. And also, the whole every time you point a camera at an Australian esports fan, they have to do something is ridiculous. Now, I did like that guy who was wearing that white muscle vest who had the giant inflatable penis. That's so far over the line of acceptable extrovert behavior that it's actually cool all of a sudden. He had aura. But yeah, not Australia, please. Thailand before Australia, for sure. I don't even mind flying. I'll fly that far for Bangkok. There you go. That's it. That's all the questions.